Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement, your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement planning. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement, your live and local St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Erin Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services, financial planner and wealth manager, and I'm joined this week and every single week by my dad, Jeff Lapidus, wealth manager and retirement coach, and my husband, Robert Markham, life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We lied to everyone last week and said that you'd be in the studio this week, Dad, but you decided to skip the wind, storm, and tornadoes of last night. Spend one more night in Florida.
Well, it wasn't up to me, but I'll be very glad to be in the studio next week.
We will be glad to have you back as well. And we help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy, a real game plan with several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate.
Second is to provide an income stream they can rely on so they can do all the things they want in retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, that Uncle Sam or the tax court's taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth advisors, Erin and I and Rob watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches.
Good morning. Did you drop the phone with that for emphasis on the last line there?
No, we're having some activity in the house, that's all.
Activity. There's activity this morning.
Okie doke.
All right. Well, you know what? We already have activity on the text line this morning. People are chomping at the bit, which is great. I guess that means they've got power and radio in their homes, so that is great to hear. But before we get to your text messages, we do want to remind everyone that there are many ways that you can keep in touch with us throughout the week, one of which is logging onto our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the Contact Us button, which will allow you to request a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both. Ask a question, leave us a comment. We'll attempt to respond to you within about 24 hours. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a pop-up box that appears. It says sign up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner, and Rob keeps the last 18 months archived for you. But let's talk a little bit about our March 2025 newsletter.
Got some great articles in there. You're sure to enjoy it. I can't believe it's already halfway through the month. I'll be constructing a new one in no time.
That's
but
right.
In this month, we've got some great articles. The first being Funding the Federal Government. It's got a great infographic. The IRS collected $4 trillion in net taxes in 2023. 50% of that total comes from individual income tax, and 35% is payroll taxes. Business income, surprisingly, only makes up 10% of that total. And our next article. Are you missing the bullseye with a target date funds? Target date funds offer a professionally managed mix of assets selected for a specific time horizon. 2 out of 3 401k participants have assets in target date fund, and because these funds are normally the default option, a lot of people don't even know they have assets in these funds. That said, this article is a great refresher if you have any gaps in your knowledge concerning these very, very widespread funds. This article will keep you up to date and definitely fill in any gaps that you may have. Our next article, the Versatile Roth IRA. This is an all-encompassing look at Roth IRAs, how they work, how much you can contribute, and the rules governing the withdrawals from these accounts. This piece highlights some of the not-so-familiar penalty-free circumstances in which you can access these funds, including college costs and first-time home purchases. And our last article, breaking down the numbers, the soaring national debt. This article takes a very hard, uncompromising look at our national debt and explains and highlights the important differences between debt and deficit. A couple things I've bullet pointed here that I thought were interesting. In the past 50 years, the United States has run a deficit 46 times. The deficit in 2024 was $1.83 trillion. The highest deficit ever was in 2020 during the pandemic, where it reached a whopping $3.13 trillion. As of September 2024, $1.1 trillion was spent on servicing the 36, almost $37 trillion national debt. You know, it reminds me of that old saying, if you live beyond your means today, by definition, you'll live below them tomorrow.
I was just thinking, you know, when they talk about you can stack a certain amount of money to get to the moon, like I wonder if 36 trillion gets you all the way there.
You know, it's funny when you say that because I've seen visual representations of what $1 billion looks like and what, you know, when you start scaling it up and when you get to the size of like the Empire State Building, when you have pallets of it just, I don't know that
surprisingly
you can't even conceptualize like what would you print all that money for? For what reason? But yeah, that is your 2024 newsletter in a nutshell.
Probably the 2025 newsletter, unless we're going back in time.
Absolutely. Forgive me, I'm just getting over a cold.
That's right. The flu has stricken our office, but we're still here for everyone this morning. Dad, do you...
And our phone lines are, I was going to say our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from, we hope they're stacking up, KTRS text line.
And, you know, I think this text is a great one to kick the show off with, only because it sort of relates to the newsletter. Through the years, I've been listening. We appreciate that. I get the impression from Jeff that he does not recommend converting IRAs to Roths. Dad, you've garnered a reputation. Before having to take required minimum distributions. I'm checking in because our tax advisor, who is different than our financial advisor, suggested that since we are approximately receiving $4,000 refunds this year to start converting, but only enough to reduce the amount of our refund. I think that personally, I mean, obviously, Dad will let you weigh in on this, but I think that if all you are doing is systematically reducing your refund, if you already have a Roth in existence and you're just building upon that, I think that's a great way to start to create some tax-deferred and hopefully tax-free growth for you as long as you follow the 59.5 and the Roth's been in existence for 5 years rule. I think that's a good opportunity that you'll have until you get to required minimum distribution age.
You know, I think it's curious because not having enough information, I'm just wondering why this person is getting a $4,000 refund. Maybe the possibility is that they're over withholding.
That's a good point.
From their, et cetera. So a real simple thing would be instead of going through the exercise of a Roth conversion, why not take a look at your tax withholdings and adjust those appropriately?
Well, but if you've already got, but like, for example, this year, if you already had the withholdings, it could be a good opportunity to just do the conversion and then adjust for next year.
Well, if you want to take it to, I'll call it the extreme. We know that the first approximately $90,000, if you're married filing jointly, is taxed at the 12% bracket. If you are under that number, instead of just converting 4,000, I would convert enough
to get you to that bracket.
Exactly, so that you're doing it. Now, at the end of the day, again, as my normal argument is, if you're in that low of a tax bracket, why pay taxes to convert something to become tax-free if it's at 11%?
These are all decent arguments.
I don't get it, but
we definitely would not recommend Roth conversions after you get to required minimum distribution age, because essentially what happens there is you have to take the required minimum distribution. None of that can be converted into Roth, and then anything above and beyond that you pull out of your IRA could be converted into Roth. So just like the idea of converting while you're still working and in your highest potential tax bracket, converting once you've reached required minimum distribution age usually doesn't make a lot of sense either. So for most people, you've got a relatively small window between when you retire and 73 or potentially 75, depending upon when you were born, to actually do those conversions.
Agreed.
All right, then. Well,
I was going to say, if our text line is not, if we don't have any other texts, we had a discussion, and it does happen that because of the recent volatility in the market, and that is the run up this year, and then obviously we touched correction territory earlier this week with the S&P 500 being down 10% from its high. It's appropriate for us, we feel, to engage our clients. Do it. Let them know what we're thinking, taking away a lot of the analyst speak, if that's a good way of putting it, and give them our idea about how we read the tea leaves today and moving into the future. And Erin, I thought you wrote a very, very well written, well constructed email for our clients, and I thought that it would be great for you to share that with everybody this morning.
All right. As we navigate the ebbs and flows of the financial market, we wanted to take a moment to reaffirm the importance of staying invested over the long term, even during periods of volatility. We understand the market fluctuations can be unsettling, but history has shown us that patience and long-term perspective are key to achieving financial success. Time in the market, not timing the market, has been a key contributor to building your wealth. To start the year, we made strategic adjustments to your portfolio to better position us for the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. We reduced our exposure to growth, increasing our value positions in the equity components of your portfolios, adding an enhanced international position to that portion of the portfolio as well. We also added mortgage-backed securities while shortening the duration on your bonds in the fixed income component of the portfolio. We believe these adjustments have served us well and have poised us for strong performance when the market inevitably recovers. It's important to remember that temporary market downturns are a natural part of our investing journey. While short-term volatility can be nerve-wracking, it is often during these times that the foundations for future wealth are laid. By staying committed to your investment strategy and maintaining a long-term outlook, you position yourself to benefit from the market's eventual recovery. For many of you, we have added additional layers of principal protection through annuities. For everyone, we have maintained a well-balanced and diversified portfolio with tactical adjustments along the way. As your advisors, we remain dedicated to monitoring the markets, evaluating opportunities, and making informed decisions that align with your financial goals. Your trust and confidence in our approach are greatly appreciated, and we are here to provide guidance and support every step of the way. So, I think that this week is interesting because if we look back 5 years ago, this was, I'll call it COVID week, when we started to announce shutdowns, national emergencies, and in conjunction with all of those announcements, the S&P dropped 10% in a single day 5 years ago. It's taken us, I think, 3 to 4 weeks to get to a 10% correction on the S&P.
This is the fourth week.
We just concluded the fourth week. So although this correction has felt rapid, we have all experienced, really in a short history, even more rapid corrections than what we're engaged in right now. And I would say that just like COVID, just like 2.5 years ago when we began a rate hiking cycle, all of our corrections arise from multiple reasons. It's usually not just one triggering event. So it's important to keep in mind that, there are countervailing forces at all times, and letting things play out, and to use another one of the cliches, not attempting to catch the falling knife, can usually be to our benefit, because we've seen in the past some pretty rapid recoveries. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the course that we'll take with our current pullback, but having experienced such a great run in the market over the last 2 years, it's a normal course for the market to take a breather, as you like to say, Dad.
Totally agree. And I think what's important here is we focus on the fundamentals, which is the base of the economy is strong. We're seeing technological advances that are coming incredibly rapidly. AI is certainly something that really fueled the market for the last 2 years. And frankly, I think we're still based really just at the cusp of this at this moment. And these downturns tend to be very, very short-lived, which is great.
Yep.
But let's be honest. I'm greedy like the next person. I love when the markets go up. Don't love it when they decline. But our history shows us that after every decline, we continue to hit market highs. And so, as I say to anyone that asks me, or what I like to think about it in this way, is that if you don't believe that we have seen the market be at its all-time highs forever, then we're just on the way. So this is just another step in the journey. But I don't believe that we've hit the all-time market highs. I think we're going to continue to move forward, and therefore, being a citizen of this country, I think it's, we have the freest, the fairest economy. I'm looking forward to the rebound. That's all.
As we all are. Well, why don't we, talking about a potential rebound, why don't we hit our first topic, or at least start off our first topic of the morning? Where should I reinvest this cash?
Absolutely. And we had a wonderful coaching session with Joe and Sally, who are both 67, and they have about $40,000 in cash excess from their desired vault reserve. Where should they invest this money?
Well, there are a few things that we want to consider first. One is liquidity. Will they need will Joe and Sally need access to these funds in the next year and a half, 2 years, for capital purchases, for vacations,
weddings?
Exactly. Repairing your home from the downed trees, whatever the case happens to be. Are you in need of any additional liquidity? And this is really above and beyond your normal income needs. Then, go ahead, Dad.
I was going to say, then again, we also want to look at the factor of safety. Is this money truly available for long-term investment purposes? And how will adding this money to your current portfolio change that risk tolerance that you have, and or can we use this capital maybe as a way to rebalance your portfolio?
And then lastly, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Then we have debt obligations. Does it make sense to liquidate existing debt obligations to improve their cash flow? Lump sum versus increased installed payments.
Right. So would you, does it make sense to throw the full $40,000 at a debt? Maybe you have a car loan. Maybe you're at the end of a mortgage. Or does it potentially make sense to say we can accelerate a payment over the course of the next few years to fully liquidate that debt over a period of time?
I think that was, that was a very good general discussion about what are some of the factors that we're looking at when we're talking about dealing with excess cash. But let's dig in a little bit deeper on Joe and Sally and see how this really plays out. We know today that they have approximately $1.7 million in traditional IRA accounts that we're currently investing for them. They have no primary mortgage debt, but they do have a home equity line of credit of approximately $10,000, which may be increasing if they got hit by a tree from this last storm. As we've heard actually from our staff has had some issues. It's been determined that their monthly income shortage, and that is when we did their game plan, that their goal of $8,000 less their Social Security of $5,000 requires that we make a monthly distribution, which we are doing now for them today, of approximately $3,000 a month or $36,000 a year. This computes to be approximately a 2% withdrawal rate. So from a withdrawal point of view, the rock stars, right? Because they're under that magical 4% prudent withdrawal rule.
And that includes them servicing that home equity line debt. So making that payment is inclusive of what they're already pulling on a monthly basis. And they're still at that 2%.
And an added kicker,
That's right.
and an added kicker to all this is they recently switched to a Medicare Advantage plan during annual enrollment, which saved them $5,000 annually.
Wow, just making it better every day.
Yeah, so truly, before we start to answer the question for them about investing these excess funds, what we really need to ask is, how have you been able to accumulate this $40,000 in the last 2 years since you've been retired?
Right, because usually what we say in retirement is you don't have to save anymore, we just spend less, or we don't spend. So as opposed to having to squirrel away money like you do while you're working, where first you're contributing to your retirement plan through payroll deduction, then maybe you are setting aside money into different buckets that you've assigned as vacation or Christmas or home repairs. Usually in retirement, we're meeting your monthly income needs, so you don't have to siphon any savings away. Everything's already saved.
So we did find out a couple of things. The first one is that their expenses have been less than they currently estimated. And of course, it's funny because usually we're always asking how's the money when we visit with folks. And in this case, they were telling us, everything is fine, everything is fine. They weren't really telling us that they were stacking up the Benjamins, as I like to say. The other thing is that their Social Security benefits have had some significant increases over the last couple of years because of their indexing with inflation. And at the same time, we know that they weren't consuming those increases as well. So let's talk about what would be a prudent way for them to move forward with their game plan.
So first, why don't we consider paying off that home equity line of credit today? There's no need to pay the non-deductible home equity line of credit interest any longer because it's greater than the money market account that they're earning right now. So in the past, and this is completely reasonable, people will play the interest rate game. In the money market account, I'm earning more than what my interest is on a specific debt. And so in this particular example, I think it was for Joe and Sally, the home equity line of credit debt their interest was less than what they were earning in the money market account. But since the Feds cut interest rates a couple of times at the end of last year, we saw money market accounts drop, but we haven't seen home equity lines of credit, the interest that is accrued there, decrease yet. So maybe it's time to flip that and say, let's just pay that off because you're not making up there's no more arbitrage, so to speak.
Absolutely. And the second thing we could do is reduce their withdrawals to meet their updated monthly spending.
So that way they're not...
Right. The expenses aren't as much. We don't want to create taxable events for money that you don't need. So it would make sense to pare that back in line with their new spending.
And then certainly what we could then do is take the balance of that $30,000, the difference between the payoff of their home equity line and the $40,000 of excess cash, and we could put it to work for growth today so that that capital would be available for either income purposes or for future growth, which is cool. I think that the moral of the story here is you really don't want to pay taxes on money that you're not consuming. There are many ways that you can be patriotic, but paying extra income taxes is really not the preferred method. And, with our clients, I guess what's fun is that we do like to remind them at times, we can always send you money. when you need it. And we obviously do that now with them on a monthly basis. And do you trust us to send you back your money? And the answer is yes. Well, then guess what? Let's not pay taxes on it at this point. But, again, we know that people's game plans change. Sometimes expenses are more. Most times expenses are less. And trying to tweak in terms of the amount of income taxes they're paying is very important because, again, it's one of those things that Uncle Sam doesn't like to send the money back unless you request it.
I think
that was
the
from the
dog
peanut
agrees.
gallery. Sorry about that.
The dog agrees. And with that, I think we should take our first break of the hour.
So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement right after these brief messages.
What's that sound?
Oh, that's just Jim, our screen repair guy. It's a little-known fact that the window screen repairman hibernates during the winter months when broken screens are scarce. Then, as spring brings warmer weather, he awakens to once again begin his work.
Wow. Really?
No, not really. Only wild animals hibernate. Jim is just taking a nap because he doesn't have many screens to fix.
Oh.
Hi, this is Frank Blair from Schnarr's Hardware, here to tell you this is a great time of year to avoid the spring rush and drop off your screens to get them ready for warmer weather.
Oh, yeah?
Then you can open up those windows at the first sign of balmy breezes, instead of waiting like your neighbors will have to.
Oh, so the screens keep the bugs out while the balmy breezes come in.
Bring those screens into Schnarr's today and avoid the rush.
Really?
Schnarr's Hardware, where we don't charge for the popcorn or the advice. We're open 7 days a week, so call us at 314-993-0910, or for location, hours, or to shop online, go to schnarrs.com.
Brendan Weesey for AAA Home Services, a proud sponsor of Mizzou Hoops. For 55 years now, AAA Home Services has been a leader in selling and servicing American Standard heating and air conditioning, as well as servicing all brands. And right now is the best time to buy a new system from AAA to take advantage of the best rebates and offers of 2025. They're also experts in plumbing, appliance repair, and electrical needs. Call AAA at 636-397-3200 for the best incentives on American Standard. Open 6 days a week online at AAASTL.com. Call AAA. We're on our way. Let's go, Tigers.
You're selling your home, and I want to buy it. This is Mike Robinson with Robank Properties, and I am ready to pay top dollar for your home. No contingencies, no inspections, no monkey business. I buy your home no matter the condition or location, and you walk away with cash. Call me, Mike Robinson, at 314-283-0867, 314-283-0867, or at robangproperties.com. That's ROBANG properties.com.
Look at our alums, the contributions that they have made throughout industries in the St. Louis region.
Terry Freerks, a graduate of the University of Missouri, St. Louis.
UMSL is embedded in the fabric of the St. Louis community. We're hands-on, and when our students graduate, they are definitely career ready, but maybe more importantly, they're career confident.
More is what moves us. Find your more at more.umsl.edu.
The MLS season is here.
He has done it! What a goal!
And the Big 550 KTRS is your home for soccer in St. Louis. With the most expansive coverage in town. Brendan Weesey, Frank Cusimano, Mark Moser, Matt Baker, and Bill McDermott bring you all the insight for year 3 of City SC.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to the show. It's 9:35 here on the Big 550 KTRS. We're a little more than halfway through hour number 1 of our show. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the usually hot and heavy KTRS text line.
While we're waiting for your calls and texts, why don't we talk a little bit about something that many people are familiar with, managing debt obligations.
Absolutely. During a coaching session with Joel, who's 59, and he wants to retire in 4 years, and he revealed the following goal. My wife and I would like to be debt-free before I retire, and that's a laudable goal.
Absolutely. I think that for many, and I've seen this with quite a few people, even when their debt obligations aren't necessarily what someone would consider significant, the idea of eliminating payments before you get to retirement isn't always a necessity, but sometimes it does create a little bit of, it creates some additional security and also some comfort.
Peace of mind is priceless.
Absolutely. Also, it makes you feel like, well, if I've got very low additional monthly debt obligations, I can dedicate more of my income to lifestyle expenses if that's what they choose, or a little bit more towards vacations, things like that.
Or spend more.
Right.
Which they do, right? So let's talk a little bit about Joel's fun facts here. He and his wife do have a primary mortgage of approximately $210,000. They've also agreed to repay approximately $80,000 of student loan debt for their oldest son, and they currently owe about $10,000 in credit card debt from expenses that they incurred during a recent kitchen upgrade. Their total outstanding obligations are approximately $300,000. But they also had a couple of other goals, right?
That's right. They only had about $20,000 in savings, and so they would really like that to be double, and their ultimate savings goal for their emergency fund is about $40,000.
So let's take some time and talk about the process that we recommend in dealing with debt obligations.
The first thing we want to do is rank debt by the interest rate being charged.
You know, it's everyone's initial inclination to look
go to amount.
Right, to go to the $210,000, I got to get that down. But in just, you know, and we haven't gone through the interest rates, but just hearing what types of debt we have, Joel and his wife have.
I would think the credit card would be top of list.
Exactly. Credit card's probably the top of the list because that amortization schedule is a single year, and those APRs tend to be in the double digits. Probably the student loan debt would be number 2 is my guess, and then finally would be the mortgage obligation because you have got the longest amortization schedule, and usually that drives down the interest rate.
That sounds about right.
So then what we want to do is determine what the minimum payment would be for each obligation. And once we've done that, we also then have to go back and say, based on our current cash flow game plan, how much are we able to dedicate to paying off these debt obligations? And in their particular situation, we were able to determine that based on their current payment schedule, they were actually able to allocate approximately $1,200 per month to that duty.
And
so the question really is, right, babe, is it possible for them to actually achieve this goal and be debt-free within 5 years?
This is a great question, and it gives us an opportunity to game plan over not a long period of time, but it does give us a 5-year runway to help them achieve these goals. And I think the very first thing that we want to do is stop fighting a 3-front battle and really focus the majority of our attention on one debt obligation at a time.
I like that. Let's win one battle at a time.
Right. So let's start with first, let's concentrate, just like you said, Rob, on paying off that credit card debt. It's the highest interest rate with the shortest duration, and we want to make sure that as you're adding things to that credit card, because no reason not to get the points or the miles or the cash back that you've always been getting, but we don't want to add to the debt. So we know that they only incurred about $10,000 from parts of a kitchen remodel.
At $1,200 a month, we could probably knock that out of the park within 8 months.
Right, but we can't. When we're fighting one battle, we also can't. we can't completely abandon the other two. So we got to make sure that we're meeting the minimum payments on those other debt obligations. We just want to maximize how much can we put towards the first battle that we're fighting, which is that credit card debt. And so it looks like they should be able to do that within about a year.
Absolutely. And the peace of mind that that's going to give to move one of the highest interest rate debt obligations they have right off the push it right off the boat is going to make them feel a lot better about where they're going and how they're going to get there.
And Dad, we let you talk to Joel about our second strategy.
Yes, and it was appropriate because Joel is out. Joel and his son, he's out doing his thing. He's working, and he is in a position where he can shoulder some of this obligation. And so I recommended that maybe it's time for them to have a conversation about sharing this obligation at this time. And as I'd like to say is that, if Joel's son would like Joel to be his banker in the future, he may need take some steps today to step up to the plate and help Dad and Mom with getting rid of this obligation, so they'll be in a position where they can help at some time in the future.
And
not an easy conversation, but certainly one that would be appropriate.
Absolutely, and we've definitely had clients that have had those very similar conversations with their children. It doesn't necessarily all circle around college loans, but for example, we had a client whose son was living in the basement and was paying them rent to do so. Instead of taking that rent money and just putting it towards the parents' expenses, the parents put that money into a savings account and held on to it, and then ended up giving it back to their son when he moved out. Joel and his wife might not necessarily be able to do exactly that, but they can potentially say, we did commit to helping with that, with the loan obligation for you, son. So down the line, if you can help us now, then we should, be able to, like you said, Dad, help in the future in other ways when we've kind of liquidated some of the debt that we're working to get rid of.
And in this situation, again, once phase one, which is getting rid of the credit card debt, is dealt with, phase two, which is coming to some equilibrium in terms of the sharing of this debt obligation, obviously there were excess funds that were available. So the real question becomes, will their cash flow in retirement be able to continue to support a mortgage payment? If it can, then the answer is that's okay.
I also think we left out one important part of this strategy, which is as we win the battles. So as after the year ends and we've paid that credit card balance to zero, what we want to do is not reallocate those funds elsewhere. We want to take that payment in whatever dollar amount it was and apply it to the next battle. So
reallocate those forces for the next fight.
Exactly. So if we said there's $1,200 a month to dedicate to debt service, once we've completed the credit card debt, you still have the same amount available, but now we only have two obligations remaining, or potentially one, depending upon what Joel and his wife worked out with their son. Take all of that and dedicate it towards the next obligation. And then when we've gotten rid of two obligations, now we can take the full debt service allocation and press our final debt, which is the mortgage, to pay that off. So we're just kind of working down the ladder, but we're maintaining the same funding allocation to the debt itself.
And you could also use that same stratagem to fill up your emergency bucket. Like instead of paying off the credit cards, liquidating these debt obligations, you're keeping that payment the same, but siphoning off portions of it to refill that bucket.
That's a great point, and I also think one other thing that we would consider talking to Joel and Sally about, Joel and his wife, I'm sorry, and maybe Sally has two husbands, Joe and Joel.
Well, that would help in the repayment schedule.
It's a 3-income household. Anyway, we didn't talk about what Joel and his wife's retirement plan savings look like, how much they are contributing at their current employers. Maybe they are considering bringing down their contributions to the match, so they're still receiving whatever match that their employer is offering, but that they have taken some of the funds that were going into the retirement account and instead redirecting them either to the debt obligation or to building up some of that after-tax savings that was one of their other goals, to get from that $20,000 to the $40,000.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, honey. And in many cases during these coaching sessions that we're having with folks, especially if they're within 5 years of retirement, we find that when we do their game plan, if they have accumulated sufficient assets to deal with the milk money, creating an income stream, then it really does make sense to work on reducing obligations because, as you said earlier, less outflow makes those inflows become and feel more valuable. So, again, it's an algebra problem that we really like to have kind of fun and deal with, and just some other things that we really need to keep in mind. Number one is that, withdrawals from pre-tax accounts can be expensive based upon the cash flow needs that you have. So, if we have after-tax accounts, we may even consider using those in some cases, like we talked about in our previous example, to deal with debt obligations. Also, we need to measure the effects of that additional income, if we are pulling from retirement accounts, on their effective tax rate. Will this, just like we had our texter ask about a Roth conversion, adding additional income tax flow, is that going to raise our effective tax rate above into the next bracket? And that's something that we may not want to be able to do. And again, with filling your emergency fund, that's an issue that is always in the background because we know that things happen. So dedicating some of those dollars towards filling up that bucket is always a good idea if we're in a position to do so. And what's nice for Joel is that once we got through the first 12 months, we got rid of that credit card obligation. We were able to really parse some of that money, that $1,200 per month, into their emergency fund so that they could feel a little more comfortable that they were really, if you like to think, even though they're battling on two fronts, what they felt like is that they were winning, and they could see that they were reducing their debt obligations at the same time they were improving their savings.
Absolutely.
So it was all good.
When you're battling on three fronts and then it's two, and while you're battling two, you're also restocking your emergency fund, it's got to have a very positive effect on your peace of mind.
Well, and Dad, you've always said this, and it really is true, is when you set goals and you start to not either achieve them or work towards them, it builds momentum, and momentum is always good when it's working in your direction. So we tend to see that people are able to liquidate debt faster. They accrue it slower as they're working towards those goals. So we think that, once we get through this year, we get to reevaluate exactly where we are in the plan with Joel and his wife and say what's step 2 and how quickly can we move on to step 3.
And one thing we didn't even talk about with Joel was this going to be the forever house? Because
that's a good point.
If it isn't, then paying down that mortgage may not necessarily be the way that we go about it.
That's a great point. And this also gives Joel and his wife time to think about that, because paying off the mortgage isn't our primary goal now, so they've got a few years to consider, is this really where our retirement is going to be spent, or do we have other goals in mind?
Well, when you have a 5-year or 60-month runway, you can solve a lot of problems in 60 months if you're really dedicated and you buckle down.
You know what else you can do?
I'm sorry, Jeff.
Go ahead.
No, you were going to say what else we can do, babe, which is you can always give us a call, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And we should probably take our second break of the hour, right?
That's right. So when we get back, we'll be here to answer those texts and calls. So don't touch that dial.
Sure, AAA are the folks who can get you back on the road when you have a flat tire. They can also provide quality and affordable home and auto insurance. But when you think of AAA, think of this too, AAA Travel. Hi, it's Julie Buck, and AAA Travel is ready to plan your next trip or vacation. And you don't have to be a member to enjoy their services. Of course, membership does have its privileges. To find a AAA advisor near you, just visit AAA.com/travel. Remember, the internet is for looking. AAA.com/travel is for booking. Hey, it's Julie Buck for The Only Facial. You know, I love The Only Facial. They're so great with their Only Facial. You get everything that you want in a facial in 1 hour for one price, including gratuity for $125, and there's no upsell on products. And they've got locations all over town. And here's the thing, they're expanding right now. So if you're looking to make a move career-wise, and you would like to become an esthetician at The Only Facial, now would be a great time because they are hiring. And with that, you'll receive great compensation, opportunity for advancement. Managers, assistant managers, and trainers are all needed. And then at the end of the day, there's no pressure to sell products or push upsells. It's Only Facials, The Only Facial. And you can go to their website to apply and find out more about getting a facial or changing your career and working at The Only Facial. Just go to theonlyfacial.com.
Everybody loves good barbecue, and everybody wants to know where the next great barbecue place is. And if you're looking for an overnight sensation, it's only taken them 10 years. Three Bay Barbecue and Bakery, Woods Mill and Clayton Road. There is a gas station, West County Phillips 66 gas station. In that gas station, in the back, for 10 years, some of the best barbecue in town. Bring a friend and spread the word. Three Bay Barbecue and Bakery. Don't forget about the bakery. 3baybarbecueandbakery.com.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, it's 9:52 here on the Big 550 KTRS. We've got about 7 minutes left in this hour of the show. We know the hour two. I like to call it the hour of power. We're going to start talking about Medicare planning like we love to do, but our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And we go ahead, because we've got text, we've got phone calls. What do you got over there?
Well, I was just going to make a comment about our last topic. You know, we've had many folks that have come to visit with us, and, you know, they have assets, they have obligations, and it's very difficult for them to see the sunshine through the trees. And I can tell you that in at least 3 or 4 cases, we've had situations where we've created this game plan to eliminate, reduce, and truly manage their debt service. And when this was done, their assets were sufficient so that they could do the things they wanted to do and actually retire. And there is momentum. I mean, and there truly is momentum. When you see positive things happening in your finances, what you want to do is keep feeding them. And you want to continue that journey. And the truth is, being invited on that journey with them, helping them work through this thing, but these debt situations before their retirement, it was just fun. You know, it's just fun. And that's why keeping in touch and being with them once every 6 months, calling us when good things happen, etc. Really, that's what being a coach is all about.
That's right. And you know what? We have Bob on the line with a market question. Good morning, Bob.
Yes. This is regarding Roth conversions. Mm-hmm. Right now, the market is down, and wouldn't it make sense to take some of that, if you have a whole lot of traditional IRA money or qualified money, that is you're going to pay taxes on sooner or later. But right now, when the market is down, wouldn't the Roth conversion make sense by paying the tax on that conversion now out of some money you got on the side? And then when it's in the Roth IRA, all that gain will be tax-free.
So I would only comment here, which, yes, that is a strategy, especially when, the market is down. So sometimes you've seen some depreciation in your assets. Doing that conversion now means you can buy more shares at a lower cost inside of your Roth account. More shares growing in value should help achieve a larger Roth over a period of time. One, you have to be willing to bite the bullet, pay the taxes. But then secondly, I would just say that we're in a pullback right now, but we're really not too far. We're about 10% off the highs in most cases. So I don't feel as though this is as extreme of an example that would produce, some of the results where when we talk about being at the very bottom in a bear market where we can see 20, 30+% drawdowns would have the same impact. But if you've got some room in the bracket, and you, as my dad likes to say, want to be charitable, there are added benefits to doing this when we are in correction territory.
Yeah, I would just like to add one thing to our caller, and we do appreciate him calling in on this matter. Let's assume that our caller was in a 25 to 30% effective tax rate today. Mm-hmm. We know that the requirement of distribution percentage from IRAs starts at approximately 4%. It's not that large. Mm. So why pay taxes today unless you have a primary goal of passing these assets on to someone else, typically children, grandchildren, etc., income tax free? I would suggest to our caller that a more effective, especially if you're looking at doing large amounts, a more effective strategy might be to consider, especially if you're someone that's in reasonably good health, a life insurance policy, which could then be used to pay the taxes on that IRA that's remaining, taking some of that requirement of distribution and using it in that way. I think it's a more cost-effective way to do it, and we know that, use an example, if you're going to convert $100,000, you know that you have to pay $30,000 of taxes right away. That money is gone unless you actually take money from your own.
Even if you took it from your own account, it's just gone from a different account.
Right, and you're not really doing a true $100,000 conversion unless you take the $30,000 that you gave to the government and actually from other assets and put that into reimburse that Roth. A life insurance premium would be certainly more efficient and more effective, and frankly, it might even be a situation where you already own some. If you're very well off, maybe you might consider changing the beneficiary on your life insurance policy to those children so that they'll have the money income tax-free to pay off those taxable assets when they receive them.
I think that when we're talking about Roth conversions, there are a lot of factors that go into this, most specifically your tax bracket and your effective tax bracket, because just like you said, Dad, when we're approaching the 20+% bracket, even if we see a 10% drawdown in the market and you do a conversion, if we're just doing the math, you're still not saving all that much. So, and in fact, you still have to pay the taxes on what you convert. So what's the ultimate goal? And when we look down the road at, like you said, Dad, required minimum distributions, we find that most people are taking that amount of money from their accounts to make their income flow work in retirement. And we're still seeing people in about the 10% tax bracket. And I would just make one final comment on this, especially in this year. I would hold off on any tax decisions aside from paying last year's taxes until we hear what the new tax bill is going to look like. Because if they make it retroactive for this year, you don't want to be in a situation where Roth conversions are not reversible any longer. That was changed with the Secure 2.0 Act. So you might want to hang on before you make any decisions.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, Call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Welcome back, everyone, to Straight Talk on Retirement.
Because you care, we talk Medicare.
That's right. It's time for one of our favorite segments of the day. There's smart choices about your health care. Rob, tell us a little bit about what we're going to chat about today.
There has been a lot of questions that we fielded in the office, both Franklin and myself, about the dental benefit, especially with Aetna. So I figured this story will help people understand their dental benefits a little bit better, as most people are in the same situation with their dental coverage. Dennis and Christine have two separate Medicare Advantage plans. Dennis is on the Aetna Gold HMO, while Christine is on the Essence HMO. They joined 3 years ago, and it made sense for Christine to go with Essence Plan due to her prescription costs.
So this is a nice little aside, which is that in Medicare, you get to tailor your health insurance to meet your health care needs, and that is even amongst couples, so you don't have to choose the same thing together. We can really personalize your health insurance.
Absolutely, and before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, you never want to pick a plan because of the peripheral benefits, albeit over-the-counter, dental, vision. I mean, these are nice sweeteners, but they're certainly we don't want to turn that into the defining reason why you choose a plan. As always, we want to start with who you're seeing and what you're taking, and then work backwards from that. Now, there are some specific occasions where someone will say, hey, look, I know I'm going to have a lot of dental work this year.
Or I need hearing aids.
Right. So can we look at a plan that will specifically help me in addressing those concerns? And, that is a unique situation. But as always, we like to work backwards from what are you taking and who are you seeing?
And you make a great point, because in a lot of cases, we have client that you and Frankie see clients all the time who fit into multiple plans. Well, if the medications fit, if the prescriptions fit, but then you have an additional need like dental or...
I call it the all things being equal. Like there are many plans that will get you to the same place. So now now we can look at those sweeteners and see which plan has the best sweeteners that are in line with what your preferences are. Perfectly normal, perfectly natural, but we don't want to work the equation from backwards forwards.
Right. We don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Absolutely. So with all that said, when Christine joined her plan, she had to switch to a dentist, to an in-network dentist, in order to use her dental benefit.
And that's because Essence used a dental network 3 years ago. And so if you didn't use their dentist, you didn't get access to their dental.
Absolutely. And, it wasn't a big deal because she was able to find an in-network dentist through DentaQuest and use all of her dental benefit. Dennis did not have to change his dentist because his plan allowed him to see any licensed dentist in the country.
So 3 years ago, Aetna had no dental network, so you could see whomever you'd like.
Absolutely. And when Dennis went to get a cleaning last month, he was told he'd have to pay $80 for the cleaning. Dennis paid the $80 and thought he would just use his plan as he normally would and send the reimbursement to Aetna. When Aetna denied the appeal, that's when we heard from Dennis.
So let's first just quickly review what the 2024 benefits looks like, and then we'll talk about the 2025 benefits with Aetna. So in 24, you had no dental network. 100% of the dental 100% of your dental was a reimbursement program. So the dental allotment was on a reimbursement basis. You could see any dentist that accepted Medicare, and you would be reimbursed 100% up to the amount that I think it was it $3,000 last year?
I want to say $2,500, but
okay.
it might have been $3,000.
Wait, hold on. Okay.
No, I think I got rid of the old charts.
The old charts are gone. The new charts are here. So just suffice it to say 100% reimbursement up to the allotted amount. Most of the time, you would pay up front because the dentist office didn't want to wait for the reimbursement to come from Aetna, so you got to do the paperwork, or maybe you had Frankie do the paperwork for you if you were working with us. In 2025, the dental benefit with Aetna has changed. There's $2,000 for preventative and comprehensive services. So you have $2,000 of dental available to you. But
no more reimbursements.
So for some people, this is great. For other people, they're not as excited about it. The reason that it is kind of great is the days of self-submitting the bills and filling out the reimbursement paperwork, that luckily is all over.
And I would think that would be a benefit. I mean, I like when I go to the doctor or whatever.
You just hand them the card.
Right, and whatever it is. And, I don't need to be fully aware of what they're doing in the back office.
Right, you don't have to be involved in the inner workings.
Right, I just need to be focused on what my portion of the obligation is.
I agree with you. And to that end, Aetna's working with the dentists to now bill directly. So the dentist bills Aetna for your charges and works it out really very similarly to what dental was like before you joined Medicare, most likely. You show them your dental card. They say you have an X amount of copay, or based on the coverage, you owe this amount. And then you also got the caveat, which was if your insurance doesn't pay or doesn't pay as much as we anticipate their pay, you get to pay more. So that's still all true.
And Aetna gives you the option to use in or out-of-network dentists under both the HMO and the PPO plans.
So this is really important because it can be a little confusing. If you are on the Aetna Gold HMO, if you are on another one of the Aetna HMOs, you still have a dental PPO network. You don't have to be on the Aetna PPO medical in order to have in and out-of-network benefits through the dental coverage. But here's the kicker, and this is true. Most of you are well-versed in dental because you had it your entire working careers through employers or maybe your spouse's employer. Using out-of-network dental really never pays very well, and the reason for that is, even in this particular case, out-of-network dentists for Aetna are only going to reimburse 50% up to the $2,000. That's preventative care and also comprehensive, so it doesn't matter. Unlike a tiered system in the past where maybe preventative you paid zero, minor you paid a percentage, major you paid a higher percentage, they are simplifying the process here, which means if you use an in-network dentist, you're going to get in-network benefits, which means your preventative care might be zero. Or you might have a charge associated with it. Aetna's going to cover that up to the $2,000. If you elect to go out of network, that is fine. You still have access to $2,000. You just have to pay 50% of whatever is charged for whatever service. So just like in Dennis's case where he had the $80 bill, sounds to me like his original bill was $160. He paid 50% of it. Aetna's going to pay the other 50, even though it was preventative.
Let's give him a nice example with a nice big red bow.
Okay.
So Dale got his teeth cleaned, and the bill was $160 out of network. He did this. Dale's portion was $80. Dale still has $1,920 left to spend. Dale also needs to have a tooth extracted. If he goes...
Oh, poor Dale.
Yeah, I know. He's just running into it. If he goes out of network, it costs $400 to extract the tooth. Dale's bill will be half of that at $200. If he goes to an in-network dentist for the extraction, Dale will pay $0.
Right, but in
But
both...
that $400 will go towards his... $200 max benefit.
Exactly, or his $2,000 max benefit. So if we go back to Dale's already spent, or Dale has $1,920 left to spend because he already spent $80 with the cleaning.
If he goes to that in-network dentist, like we were saying, and did the $400 now from $1,920, he would be down to $1,520.
That's right.
Thank
exactly.
You.
Nice math there.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah. So you're still, even if you pay $0, you're still eating away at what you owe. But here's the thing: if you are using the out-of-network, instead of $1,920 minus $200, it's going to be $1,920 minus $400.
Correct.
So you're going to eat through your benefit 50% faster going out of network than using the in-network dentist. But that doesn't mean you can't see anyone out of network. So it's important to keep that in mind. This is with the Aetna policy specifically, and that is because they had the largest change to their dental this year. So I think that's what's driving the majority of the questions, especially because if you have the HMO style plan, then you would assume that maybe the dental follows that. But in this example, Aetna's still trying to give you an enhanced benefit by giving you the option of staying in or going out of network. Aetna, when they originally created the dental benefit over 15 years ago, they had it was $250 was the benefit, and you had to go in network, and it was only for preventative care. So they're trying to split the difference here, which is they needed to cut back some of the extra benefits to cover costs, but they didn't want to cut them all away, and they also still wanted to give people choice. So that's what the ultimate goal here is. And we also wanted to just spend a couple of minutes talking about some of the things that aren't covered in 2025.
Before we get to that, I just wanted to say that, this is a great example of, your dad has these little catchphrases that I've internalized because they're a nice way to think about a little bit more of a complex issue and boiling it down. Like if you don't trust, you may need a trust.
Sure.
Well, this case here reminds me of, you don't want to fight your plan.
Don't fight the plan.
Don't fight. It's great to be able to use out-of-network physicians and dentists. It's a convenience that if it's an option that you may need to explore or may want to explore. But for the most part, you see the benefits of staying within the network. And that's really, you don't want to be swimming upstream against your plan because it's only going to cost you money if that's doable.
Sure.
There may be cases where, that's not doable, and you do have to go out of network. Totally understandable. But for the most part, we never want to fight the plan. We want to swim with the tide, not against it.
Exactly. So let's just talk briefly about in 2025 the things that are not covered by anyone.
Implants.
Not covered.
Unfortunately not. Teeth whitening.
It's considered cosmetic.
All you coffee drinkers out there, it's terrible. Veneers.
Also considered cosmetic.
I tell you, on a side note, what they can do with those things now is truly phenomenal.
And they are long lasting. It's like another body part. It's great.
They'll put you in the casket with them. They will bury you with them.
They'll be the only things left.
And literally, my dentist told me that because he pointed to one of his teeth, and he's like, you see that? That was put in when I was 25. I'll go into the casket with it. He had me laughing.
Well, I could attest. I think we've told the story on the radio before about how I knocked one of my front teeth out almost. Well, cracked it in half. The veneer really... it lasts for a while.
I remember they were interviewing Gary Coleman on his financial woes, and he said, look, I have tooth care, and these costs are expensive. And I remember sitting there looking at it like, where is the lie?
Right, tooth care. Just for the single tooth, there's just one that needs care for.
Oh, my, tooth care. It's a thing. What else won't they cover? Cosmetics, which focus primarily on improving your smile. So that's a little bit open-ended. But
so probably not
right. I think everyone gets the gist of what that can mean.
Yeah, I bet that probably eliminates, unless you have a medical necessity for like the Invisalign or adult braces, unless you have a real medical need for it. Aetna or any other Medicare Advantage plan is not going to cover that for you.
No insurance that we know of as of right now on the Medicare Advantage side covers these areas. You can look into getting like a Delta Dental or a separate dental plan if you need those services covered. And even then, I would imagine they would only cover a portion of them.
Correct. And you also have to be careful because there are waiting periods on individual dental that is not wrapped in with like a Medicare Advantage plan. So with Medicare Advantage, from the day that the plan starts for you, you have access to 100% of the benefits that you are entitled to. If you opt for a standalone dental policy, so be it Delta Dental, Physicians Mutual, any of the ones that you are familiar familiar with. They generally have waiting periods that can be between 6 and 12 months, depending upon what you need. So if you're looking to snag dental and then 3 days later get a whole mouth full of veneers, it probably isn't going to cover for you. So you just want to cover all your bases before you start paying premium on things like that. We've got a couple of dental questions or comments. So first one is, hi guys, FYI, my dentist will not bill Aetna. I submitted for reimbursement. Well, that's unfortunate. I do know that some dental offices, they've decided to completely eliminate insurance from their practice. They don't, because the expense of submitting the reimbursements for patients and also the potential to not be paid in a timely manner has moved them away from that. If you're working with Frankie in our office, he is always happy to assist with the submission of the dental reimbursements to help track them for you as well. Make sure they get submitted properly so there's no denial and that, things can move quickly for you. But if not, you can log on to the Aetna site in your portal to download the reimbursement form and submit that.
You're absolutely right, and this is one of the main benefits of working with someone like Frank, in addition to the fact that it costs you nothing. Throughout the year, when you're hit with things you don't quite understand or bills that seem a little, not normal, like, hey, I thought that this was going to be covered, you have a contact point to reach out to say, hey, look, can I send this over to you? Can you put eyes on this? Can you walk me through how they got from A to B to C? And that can be very, very helpful when, you're getting bills or statements in the mail that you don't quite understand. You know that you have someone that you can reach out to that can illuminate the situation.
So now my dental provider said that they were in network when I called last year during open enrollment. Now they say they are going out of network with Aetna soon. I'm so disappointed that they are switching in March after I signed up with Aetna Medicare Advantage, assuming my dental office was in network. So now to hearken back to what Rob said at the very top of our conversation, we don't want to put the dental before the medical, but you still have a couple of days, 2 weeks through the end of this month, if you would like to revisit your Medicare Advantage plan. So if you are on Medicare Advantage and you would like to revisit which plan you're on, you still have the opportunity to make a change for an April 1st effective date. You only have until the end of March. So our last texter, if the reason you chose Aetna was to grab at that dental, and now it sounds like you're not going to be able to grab it nearly as much because if you want to keep that dentist, you're going to have to use the out-of-network portion of the benefit, which basically cuts your benefit in half is the way that I think about it. You can still use what's called open enrollment to make a switch. You want to cover all your bases when you are considering that switch, meaning making sure your physicians and prescriptions are all properly covered, and depending upon how much money you've spent for the first 3 months of the year, you want to evaluate if it makes sense to make that switch. But you do have a trapdoor for a couple of weeks. And then our last comment here, silly me, I have Aetna Gold in network. I thought cleanings and x-rays were not included in the $2,000 allowance. Okay, so I see what we're saying here, which is thought you had all preventative care covered, then an additional $2,000. Unfortunately, I could see where you would interpret it that way, because if you use in-network, it's covered at zero, but they are going to charge against your $2,000. So that is... Anytime
you have work done, that $2,000
is going to be decreased. If you pay nothing or if you pay something, there is going to be a portion reflected against that $2,000. But I can see where that appears a little misleading on the face of it. Another great reason to work with a professional, because you can ask all of those questions up front and you don't have to be surprised or, to the good or the bad when you're walking into the doctor's office or the dentist's office. So with that, it looks like we've answered the majority of our text messages.
It just came into my head. I can't think of one good reason not to work with a professional, especially someone like Frank, because it literally costs you nothing. And the only way it will cost you is if you don't work with a professional and maybe you get caught in a situation that you don't quite understand or that wasn't explained to you properly, or maybe you missed the fine print.
And then you have to disappear into the bureaucracy of an insurance company to try to get your answer. And, we've got a person here that kind of does that, who will fight that battle for you.
And even if you're not making any changes in your Medicare Advantage plans or your supplement, just the idea of coming in and putting eyes on all, because these plans change every year.
And your needs change every year.
Right. And, even if you've been a set it and forget it kind of gal or guy, it never hurts to come in and put another set of eyes on these plans and, who you're seeing, what you're taking, and working backwards from that. It never hurts.
You know what else it never hurts to do?
Tell me.
Hang on through our next break, because we're going to take a couple of minutes, and when we get back, we'll get to your calls and your questions. So please send us a text, 84126, or give us a call, 314-931-5877. We'll be right back.
Can I get serious for a moment? Something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is my front yard and taking care of your front yard. Because when you drive by someone's house and it's full of weeds, you think to yourself, oh man, it's very, very simple. You know how much I love to pretend to be a yard dork. You know what I use? Fertilome. I go to fertilome.com and I type in my zip code, and a whole host of local independent lawn and garden dealers show up. I buy the crabgrass preventer plus lawn food. It's the spring application. I get it down on my yard as soon as possible, and that greens up my yard and keeps the weeds away. So it makes me look like I know what I'm doing. But really, all I'm doing is getting Fertilome and putting it on my front yard. And that will take care of my yard for many, many, many weeks, and it go a long way to having the greenest yard in the block. So this spring, you want to green up your yard and get rid of the weeds? It all starts at Fertilome or fertilome.com.
The MLS season is here.
He has done it! What a goal!
And the Big 550 KTRS is your home for soccer in St. Louis with the most expansive coverage in town. Brendan Weesey, Frank Cusimano, Mark Moser, Matt Baker, and Bill McDermott bring you all the insight for year 3 of City SC.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back. In surround sound.
It's 10:28 here on the Big 550 KTRS. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And we've got a straggling text.
And our texter writes, why does no one talk about what Roth conversions can potentially do to your Part B premiums? I did Roth conversions a few years ago, and I wound up paying almost triple. This was not explained to me at all. I feel like there's a giant hole missing in the discussion. Thank you.
Well, it sounds like we have a team.
We usually do discuss that. Yeah, we do. We do discuss that. I think a fair amount of times on the show, don't you think?
We always do, and we like to attack it from a bunch of different angles, and that's usually one of the latter ones that we get to, because the tax bill associated, like use
the initial shock,
right? The initial shock of, say, just using nice round numbers, $100,000, 30 off the top, gone. And I always like to play, well, what would that 30 have turned into if left unmolested and allowed to, participate in market forces? So, looking at it and then when you start working downstream from that, yes, I mean, there is a 2-year look back on your earnings. You could be in a situation where you, like our texter, unfortunately, it wasn't explained to him or her that, this would have an adverse effect on your Part B premium. So there are a lot of costs in doing this, And this is one of the prime reasons why you want to consult a financial professional. Excuse me.
You're right. You want to, you have multiple brackets to consider, which is you don't just have your effective tax rate to consider, which is what we've primarily focused on today, but you have to consider the Medicare Part B income threshold, because that's a tax that's coming 2 years in advance, 2 years down the road. So, and we are often finding that when people are doing Roth conversions, they're not doing tiny ones like $10,000 at a clip. What they're trying to do is, like Rob mentioned, $100,000 at a clip. Well, that's going to have an impact immediately on your current tax bracket. But 2 years from now, if you are Medicare eligible, in that point taking Medicare, your Medicare Part B premium is going to go up, and there is no appeal for you to alleviate that, because it's not considered a life-changing event like retirement would, which could lower your Part B premium. This one's going to be stuck with you, and if you've done multiple Roth conversions over years, you could have multiple years of significantly higher Medicare Part B premiums, which needs to be factored in again into your, not only your expenses, but kind of needs to be factored into the expense of the conversion itself. So we have the taxes, we have the Part B premiums, and we have the loss of growth. So we could see why...
Right. It's painful just thinking about it.
You could see why, Dad, you've earned the reputation as the anti-Roth conversion man.
And the last thing I would just say about this is, one of the great things of unpacking this is, like, you want to get to someone's motivation. Like, what are we trying to do? And, what is the purpose of this maneuver? And maybe there is a more tax efficient and more wealth efficient way of getting to the same place. Like, we're trying to avoid taxes. Well, there are alternatives. I mean, the tax man is going to be paid, but how he's paid, that's a different subject.
Good point.
Very well said, Rob. Well, and again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
You know what I think it's time for? Not another break. It's not time for another break, I promise.
Okay.
I think it's time for our Rock Stars of the Week.
I love that. And this is really this really was a fun coaching session. Tina was 62. She's a new client of ours, and she's the younger sister of one of our longtime clients whose mom recently passed away. She isn't married, and she doesn't have any children. So, and she also is a customer service rep here at one of the large telephone companies, and really enjoys her work and would like to remain employed until she's 67.
So 5 more years to go.
Exactly. When her mom passed, she received the following assets: $150,000 in CDs and cash assets. Cool. Those are tax-free. $130,000 in an IRA, which became a beneficiary IRA, and $150,000 in a fixed annuity.
Was that
pretty nice haul, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Was that fixed annuity inside of an IRA, or was that outside of an IRA?
No, honey, it was actually outside of an IRA.
Nice.
But we know that Tina has a variety of tax issues to deal with here, right?
Yep.
And she will need to, in addition to inheriting her mom's IRA, she also inherited her RMD schedule, so she will need to take at least $6,500 of that beneficiary IRA to meet that obligation, and she has to exhaust the entirety of it within 10 years.
That's a big deal. And she does have a fixed annuity here, which also must be surrendered and liquidated in no later than 5 years. And just for information purposes, of the $150,000 that she inherited, $50,000 is accrued interest, which will be taxable to her as ordinary income. $100,000 of that is return of principal.
But and here's a quick question on that. Over that 5-year period, there's no exclusion ratio, so she's going to have to pull the first 50, the 51st that is taxable, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so we got to get through the first 50 before we can get to the tax-free portion.
Now, she does have now she could, if she wanted to, defer up to 5 years to taking the money. But again, the whole point is, as you said, honey, she's asked to take the money within 5 years, or she'll pay a penalty. And the first amount, so she does the first $50,000 that she takes from that contract, again, will be taxable as ordinary income. And we also know that she's currently making $500 bi-monthly contributions to her company 401k. So she isn't making the maximum contribution, right? She's putting in approximately $12,000 a year. She could be doing up to, I think it's $23,500 plus another, now the laws changed, another $11,250 of catch-up contribution. So she has a lot of room.
Yes, she does.
So the question here is, how can we absorb the cash flow associated with the IRA distributions and the annuity distributions? How can we plan them so that while she'll be paying the least amount of federal income taxes? And the reason we want to do that, because we know that taxes are shrinkage, right? We don't want to shrink the inheritance as much as we want to keep it as much as we can. So, and also Tina doesn't really need any of this money, which is kind of nice.
Oh, because she's living
to maintain her lifestyle.
Because she's living off her pay.
Exactly. So, what are some of the planning opportunities, solutions that we discussed with Tina?
Well, I think you touched on the first one. We can increase her bi-monthly contributions from $500 per paycheck to $1,700 per paycheck, and that will max her out at the $34,000 a year limit. She would then be contributing the maximum permitted each year, and at the same time, we can distribute $25,000 per year for the next 5 years from that beneficiary IRA to offset that.
As well as from that fixed annuity, which that $50,000, that interest there is all taxable. So we can make a taxable event or multiple taxable events tax neutral by pulling money that's taxable, but then increasing your retirement plan contributions, which gives you that deduction of up to $34,000 a year if you're about the same age as Tina.
You know, the IRS won't allow Tina to import her mother's IRA into her own, but this is a nice way of getting to the same place, albeit by taking a different road.
We like to call that reverse engineering.
Absolutely, and again, there is going to be some timing that's involved here in terms of the IRA distributions as well as the annuity distributions, which is important. The other thing that we would suggest that she would do is use the non-taxable portion of the annuity distribution, which is going to be $20,000 per year, to increase her personal savings. Or it can be used to replace a portion of her income if she decides that she wants to retire early or reduce her hours of work before age 67. So it gives her a little bit more options and flexibility in that regard.
It also
go
ahead.
Go ahead, babe. No, I was going to say, what's her final deal?
That we can really potentially delay her Social Security election until at very least normal retirement age, because that'll allow her Social Security to grow by that 8% per year until she gets to normal retirement age.
Yeah, which is cool. And the result here is that what we've been able to do is essentially transfer mom's IRA and the taxable portion, the interest portion of the annuity, into her 401k plan and avoid the income taxes on all of these taxable distributions.
That's pretty
cool. That's fun. Well, it's, and it's fun. Again, it's an algebra problem. It's a game. It's only the tax law. And really, it's fun to be able to help our clients meet this objective and at the same time delay Uncle Sam in getting taxes on this money, which is kind of cool. So that was a really fun coaching session with Tina. And what's cool is that she's in a position now where every year she's going to make the decision, do I want to cut my hours? Do I want to maintain them? Do I want to retire? Do I not want to retire? And we know that she's got the cash flow to be able to deal with all of these effectively.
And really, depending upon what her decision is, we can do combinations of all of these objectives, meaning if she pulls her hours back at work, we can still make the maximum 401k contributions as long as she's earning at least that $34,000 a year. And she can supplement her income not only with the distributions from mom's retirement accounts or her beneficiary IRAs, but even using some of that after-tax money to potentially supplement her income. So she might even be able to drop herself into a lower tax bracket the last few years before she fully retires.
Absolutely. Tina has options, and Tina has a lot of flexibility, and that's what we call a rock star.
That's right.
We love that idea. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from text line. We're kind of quiet today.
I think people are recovering from the gale force winds and debris all about. But you know what, I think...
And there were some transformers that apparently got hit, so they may not be able to hear us unless they're hanging out in the car.
That is a good point, too. We heard Town and Country, or we saw Town and Country had it looks like maybe a substation or something. Not an expert in this area. But anyways, how about this? Why don't we take our last break of this hour, and when we get back, we've got everyone's favorite, fun with required minimum distributions. Hopefully your calls at 314-931-5877, and always your texts at 84126 on the text line. We'll be right back.
I'm Farmer Dave, and here's my good friend and owner of MasterCars Inc., Alex Rosenberger, with today's hot MasterCars Inc. deals.
Thanks, Farmer Dave. Everyone knows we sell a lot of AutoCheck certified vehicles, but I just wanted to take a moment to announce that we're searching high and low for vehicles to buy too. Corvettes, classics, collector cars, modern muscle cars, even everyday cars if they have low miles and are in pristine condition. Motorcycles too, especially Harley-Davidsons and Ducatis. We're about to enter our peak season, so we want to add more inventory. We have great financing available, and the rates are creeping back down. We've got a great financing scenario for just about any situation. Hop on our site and get pre-approved for your dream vehicle today, from everyday to exotic.
So rev that motor and point your car in the direction of MasterCars Inc. and buy or sell today. 4100 Namioki Road in Granite City, or visit MasterCarsInc.com to get more details. That's MasterCarsInc.com.
The MLS season is here.
He has done it! What a goal!
And the Big 550 KTRS is your home for soccer in St. Louis with the most expansive coverage in town. Brendan Weesey, Frank Cusimano, Mark Moser, Matt Baker, and Bill McDermott bring you all the insight for year 3 of City SC.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to the show. Our phone lines are open. We are willing, wanting, and loving to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
You know, Dad, if I didn't know any better, I would think that you were feeding these text questions, because we started the show with a Roth conversion question.
Right, that one was just sitting there waiting for us.
Right, as if they knew. And then we're going to wrap the show's not totally wrapped up yet, but we're coming to the conclusion of the show, and we've got another one of your favorite text questions.
And our texter writes, I'm about to come into $100,000. The lease on the lease on my car is almost up. My bank is offering me to continue the lease for up to 5 more years. I can buy out the lease for approximately $25,000. Any suggestions? Well, I guess the first thing I would ask, are you happy with the car?
Right, do you want to keep it? That's a good question.
Yeah, no, that certainly would be the first place I would go. The second one is, how does that buyout price compare to market price? Is this a time where maybe he should be saying, here, take the car, have a nice day, and then just buy it back, or continue? And I guess the other question would be, how much is the residual value 5 years later if you were to decide to purchase a car at that particular time? Bunch of open questions. I would just do the algebra. I will tell you that, unfortunately, leasing is not as great of a deal as it used to be.
Is that because of interest rates?
Absolutely, because of the interest rate environment. You're right. And I've had multiple conversations with clients about this matter. And, it may make sense, unfortunately, I hate to say, is to buy the car.
Wow.
I was not expecting that.
Wow, you've all heard it first here.
The worm turns. Car ownership is back on the menu.
Well, maybe. Maybe. So, because as you guys know, I have my lease coming up at the end of this year, in November again.
Wow, what are you going to do?
I do. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
You're like, you hit this exactly horribly. The interest rates started rising right when you had your last lease was up, and now it doesn't look like they're coming down very rapidly either.
Exactly. So I have to make a decision about whether it makes sense to purchase that vehicle or not. I mean, I think that's really what it's going to come down to. And I have a feeling that I may end up purchasing the vehicle, but I'll tell you what, the first thing I'll be doing is I'll be going to the dealership website and checking out and finding out what are the prices that they're charging for people to purchase these vehicles with the same amount of mileage that I have.
Well, so could you do maybe a little bit of a numeric example for everyone? Because I think sometimes this is a little elusive, like the residual value of the car, those type of things. So could you run through an example of what numbers you'll be looking at when your lease comes up soon?
Well, sure. So right now, I know that if I were to look at my lease, I have a Lexus RX 350, which is basically the middle-size SUV. I think the purchase price on it was like $55,000, which is like nothing today. The residual value they projected at the end of 3 years is going to be approximately $28,000. So the vehicle's lost about half its value at that point. What I'm going to be doing is looking at what are the payments. My current payments are probably running
$800 a month.
Yeah, and they're probably going to go to like $1,100 a month if I was to lease the same car.
What?
11. Yeah, I'm sure it would, because I leased it like a 2% rate. Now they're at like 7.
And the car prices have gone up as well.
Well, the car price is pretty close to being the same thing, but I'm just thinking the same amount of lease. If it runs $1,100 a month, that's $36,000 on a $54,000 car, $55,000 car. The residual again is coming out to be about the same thing. So I have to ask myself, I have 30,000 miles on this car. Do I want to purchase it? Is it in good enough condition to do that? Or do I want to toss them the keys again and go through the same thing? And I have a feeling that this may just be the time that I'm going to purchase the car, because I like my car. I've always enjoyed it. They seem to keep getting better. And I'm not driving as much as I used to anymore. Now I'm driving to the office primarily. It's only about 2 to 3 miles from my house. Not making house calls, running less than 15,000 miles a year. So, other than being your mom's chauffeur. And so I got to think about that. Low mileage, why do it?
That's interesting.
I'm pretty much in the same boat. I mean, not that we're leasing a car, but we're a one-car family, and the car we currently drive is a 15-year-old Mazda 6.
Going strong
Right.
Survived the hail,
and
no blemishes.
Given that our driving is fairly limited to, going to the office and some local ins and outs, when I sit there and I think about the added cost of, an $800 car payment potentially, and then the added insurance costs that come along with it, every month I keep that Mazda is an extra $1,000 is the way I see it. I mean, no,
I think that's great. I thought you were going to give me and Erin and I walk in the snow to work or something like that. I mean, it's not. Let's be honest. I mean, at least for you guys, you have a company car allowance, so you could get one.
Well, it sounds
But
like our company car allowance is being eaten up by the big guy's car allowance. $1,100 a month. That's pricey.
It really is. And when you think about where we go and what we do, it's
How much should it cost to get from one place to another?
I hope baby Mazda doesn't hear us talking like this.
No, we're praising baby Mazda. You know what, Dad? I think now people are just. They miss you. They want you back in St. Louis.
Well, that's wonderful. I certainly.
We've got another Jeff text.
Woo!
Explain Roth conversions, good and bad.
Oh my God!
Right.
How about this, Dad? You take the explain, and you can take the bad, and Rob and I will do the heavy lifting on the good.
I think I'm with
I'll do
Jeff
the
on the
explain.
bad.
I'll let you guys. I'll do the explain, and you guys can split up the explanation. So Roth conversion basically is taking a traditional IRA, 401k, pre-tax money, and paying the income taxes and putting it into a Roth IRA account. These aren't contributions; they're actually assets that currently exist. The IRS doesn't mind you doing Roth conversions because you're paying them the money up front. But the problem is that if you don't from your own pocketbook put the money back in for the taxes that are withheld, you're not truly doing a full conversion. So use an example like we did before. Let's say that you want to convert $50,000 from your traditional IRA to a Roth. Let's also assume that you're in the 20% effective tax bracket. Well, that means that you owe $10,000 in taxes. So if you just do a straight conversion from your IRA, you're only putting $40,000 in because the under $10,000 is going to Uncle Sam. You need to replenish that Roth with $10,000 so you have a full conversion. As Erin mentioned earlier, if you can't change your mind anymore. You used to be able to change your mind during a year about doing a Roth conversion going backwards. Now you're not permitted to do that. And we know with Roth, there is never a required minimum distribution based on age. And those people that inherit those IRAs for you, they inherit them income tax free, even though they're subject to the 10-year distribution rule. Did I hit it okay?
I think you did, and I just wanted to add one more, not clarification, but just addition, which is you do not have to have earned income in order to do a Roth conversion because, like you said, Dad, these assets you've already made a contribution based on earned income, meaning you already made IRA or 401k contributions over time. Those went in pre-tax, meaning you did not have to pay taxes. You got a reduction in your tax bill the year you made those contributions. Now what you're wanting to do is say, instead of letting that grow tax deferred, I would like to instead pay the taxes now so I can forego paying the taxes in the future potentially, or my heirs can forego paying the taxes in the future. So that being said, that might be what you might consider to be a benefit. I think there are a couple of other benefits in unique situations. So, for example, we have longtime clients that were in a relatively low tax bracket. They were in about the 12% effective tax bracket. And the husband was very dedicated to making Roth conversions because he was concerned that at his passing, his wife would become a single filer. And because of their fixed income, so they had the benefit of not just Social Security, but also multiple pensions. So their base income was relatively high. And even in the event of one of them passing away, they were only going to lose Social Security of one spouse. They were going to be able to maintain their pensions and then one Social Security benefit, still putting them above the 12% bracket even with one surviving spouse. So if you want to pre-plan and you are already in a low tax bracket, it might make sense to do some conversions, keeping you in that 12% bracket. You only pay, the 10 to 12% tax on that conversion. But the truth is, there are very limited situations in which you're not going to pay a lot of taxes, or you're not going to create a lot of taxes for yourself in the future, I think, because, one, while you're still working, you're most likely in your highest income earning years, so you don't want to do it then. Secondly, when you retire, as you approach Medicare eligibility, Rob just made the excellent point, you've got a protracted amount of time from, 65 when you retire to 73 or 75 when you get to required minimum distribution age. And so if you are wanting to make meaningful Roth conversions, those could be very expensive because, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, not just $50,000. You've got taxes to pay on that. Either reducing your own liquidity because we have a $100,000 conversion, you're in the 30% tax bracket. Okay, you put the full 100 in your Roth. You have to get the $30,000 from somewhere to pay the government. If you have $30,000 after tax, well, now you've reduced your liquidity in your after-tax money by paying those taxes, and your ultimate goal of letting your Roth grow, maybe you're going to limit that because you're going to have to pull money from it at some point because you don't want to create more taxes for yourself in the next year. So you really have to be careful and weigh all of your options when you're considering doing these Roth conversions, because there are a lot of additional consequences and also long-term planning issues that you can create for yourself if you are not careful.
It's a complicated endeavor, which is certainly why you want to have a financial professional walk through all the pros and cons, put it up on the 4x8 whiteboard so you can get a good representation visually of what this represents. And, of course, you want to take into account how this will affect your Part B premiums if you're on Medicare or approaching it because of the 2-year look back. So there's a lot of moving parts here. But, I keep coming back to we're trying to avoid taxes, or at least that seems to be the majority of
people's goal.
Right. So, if we're trying to avoid taxes, and we know that they're unavoidable because Taxman always gets what's his, maybe there's an alternative that gets us to the same place without sticking us with a giant bill.
Or just the natural course of your distributions are not going to create the taxes that you necessarily think. We kind of talked about this earlier. If you're already in the 20+% tax bracket, and then you do a Roth conversion, so you're piling some more income on top of that, you're bumping yourself up into the 30% tax bracket. When you retire, your income is naturally going to drop. No one lives off of the gross pay that they are receiving from their employer because you got income taxes to pay.
You never saw it to begin with.
Exactly. So if you're only funding to what you are spending every month, that could be anywhere from 40 to 60% less than what your gross pay originally was. Because if we also factor in retirement plan contributions and things of that nature, you could be really looking at a much smaller income than you necessarily think and still maintaining your lifestyle. We also know that in retirement, you can structure your income a little differently because you got more options. Social Security is not 100% taxable. If you are pulling from after-tax money and maybe living off of capital gains and dividends, those are tax preferred. So you've got a lot of options to mitigate taxes in retirement that you really don't when you're currently working. As Dad, you like to say, you just got to earn more money.
Well, right. I'd just like to add one other point.
Sure.
It is portrayed by many that those that convert their IRAs to Roths then use those Roth IRAs for income purposes. I will tell you that over the 20-plus years, and we have clients of ours we've had for many, many years, many of them have Roths, not a single one of them uses it for income. What they do is they use them for big-ticket items. And so why pay a big ticket on the way in? With income taxes, the only reason you want to do it is two reasons. Number one is because you want to have a pool of money a year that's income tax free that you can use for big purchases, or you love your kids. Now, my kids know I love them, but I don't love them that much. So,
hey, now
it's just the way it is, babe. What can I tell you? Not going to pay Uncle Sam taxes unnecessarily. So again, visit with a financial professional. You'll be happy that you did. Look at all sides of the equation. And I would say it's almost like Lay's. Once you eat it one time, you're going to continue to want to do it. So you need to think about it. But don't think about the show, because you can always call us at 314-863-0008 for a coaching session, and we'll see you next week.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.